Hello everyone, I am the Dragon Skull, and welcome to another year review. Well, if you're new here and you don't know what this is a series I came up with where every year, at the very end, on the 31st of every year, I talk about all the things that have been going on, both the good and the bad stuff. And this one I'm going to be doing things a little bit differently now, well, this time I actually made a list of all the things I want to talk about. I have a whiteboard over there that tells me all the good things and all the bad things. But I'm going to be splitting them into two parts. It's all going to be in the same video. Maybe. Because I don't want the video to be too long. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to talk about the good stuff first. And if it's too long, I'm going to do the bad stuff in a separate video. And upload them both on the 31st, hopefully. So... And considering how last year was, not so good, I am glad to say that 2021, it was definitely an improvement over 2020. I mean, I wouldn't say 2020 was a great year, but it was definitely a solid improvement over the tragedy of 2020. I don't even see 2021 as 2021. I see it as 2020 2.0. The reason for this is because, well, what I really hated most about 2020 was not the fact that we had COVID or the whole thing with the Black Lives Matter. I mean, what I really hated about 2020 as a whole was the fact that it had to be 2020 where we got the worst year ever, because 2020 was meant to be the start of a new decade, and it was just ruined by everything that went on in that year. It was just horrible. So I consider this one the true start to the next decade. I mean, it is 2021, so that's how I see it anyway. Alright, so we're going to start off by talking about the good things that have been happening in 2021. I have a big list of good things over here and a small list of bad things, so that's definitely a good sign that there has been a lot of good in this year than bad. Because in my last year review, there's just been nothing but bad and very little good. Because my good list is very long, I'm going to keep it short by only talking briefly about some stuff. The first thing I want to talk about is the return of Bleach. That is probably the best thing that's ever happened to me this year. So much so that I ended up doing a reaction video to the trailer as soon as I got word of it. Which is something I thought I would never be doing on this channel, doing reaction videos, because, honestly, I hate reaction videos. Some I like to watch every now and then, but most of them I hate watching. And I told myself once I first started this channel I would never be a reaction YouTuber. But I had to make an exception for Bleach, because if you don't know by now, Bleach is my all-time favourite anime ever. No anime has ever topped it, and no anime probably ever will. So knowing that next year we're gonna get the anime, like the final arc of the anime, finally, is really happy. It really makes me happy. Yes, I have to wait pretty much till the end of next year, like around October is when they're finally gonna start airing it, and it's probably gonna take longer for the dub, like have the English voice actors back again. But I have waited years for Bleach to return. I can wait a little longer. Because, in fact, this Christmas has been good for me as well, because I've been collecting the Bleach manga, the Thousand Year Blood War manga to be exact. The very trailer that they animated came from these books. I have all of them. I'm only showing you 3 of them, just to give you an example of what they look like. And I've been reading them immediately after getting them this Christmas. And yeah, I kind of spoiled the Thousand Year Blood War, but I have heard from people that Kubo has changed the story of Thousand Year Blood War, because he said he didn't like how it ended, and the ending felt rushed, and he really wanted to improve on it. So that's what they're going to be doing in the anime when it returns. So that way, now that I've read the manga, I can actually make a comparison between the two and see what they changed and what they kept. Okay, next up I'm going to be talking about movies and TV shows is this throughout this year. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic last year, a lot of cinemas has had to be closed and a lot of movies and shows had to be put on hold to prevent people from getting COVID. Meaning a lot of movies that were meant to be released last year ended up getting released this year instead. So this year, especially for Marvel Studios, have flooded the entire year with new movies and TV shows, and I don't and I'm not and I love it. There is a lot of good stuff that they release. Like, I'm going to talk briefly about some films because I don't want to make this video too long, talking about what I really liked and what I didn't like in the movies. But for those movies I really want to talk about, I am definitely going to go into some details without spoiling anything. Of course, there's no spoilers for the movies or shows if you haven't seen them yet in this video, and if there is, I deeply apologize. So the first movie I want to talk about is Spider-Man: No Way Home. That is probably the best movie I've ever seen this year. Definitely, hands down, the best movie ever. I remember when I saw it in the cinema, me and my friends and Michael and several other Spider-Man fans went crazy over what happened in the movie. Again, I'm not going to spoil anything. And, well, everyone knows about past movie villains coming back, like Alfred Molina's Dark Ark and Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin returning in this movie, so that's not spoilers. But seeing these villains all return, like villains from movies I grew up with, as well as many others, come back in this movie, was probably the best feeling ever. The movie was so good, I ended up seeing it twice in the cinemas. That's how good it was. Like, the moment I saw it the first time, I wanted to see more of it. So I went back and watched it a second time. That's how good it was. Because as someone who loves Spider-Man growing up, this was a fan dream come true. Especially when they also brought back things that made the villains really good. Like, for example, when Electro came back, they actually played his theme from The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which I thought was epic. Same with Sandman, they played his theme when he showed up. Really, it was really cool. And the story is also really amazing as well, almost amazing as Spider-Man himself. Where Peter is trying to cope with the whole world knowing his identity, and Doctor Strange is in it, and he's going to help him by casting a spell to make the whole world forget that he's Spider-Man. But this would also include his friends and Doctor Strange himself. And then this caused the multiverse to collapse, and many Spider-Man villains end up coming this. That's all I'm going to talk about for now, because I fear that if I go too much into this, I will end up spoiling some stuff. But I will say this. There was a moment in the movie that me and many fans have theorized and prayed to God would happen. And it did happen. And when it did, the whole cinema went nuts. Everyone was screaming and crying tears of joy, myself included, because of that moment. And it was probably that is what marked Spider-Man: No Way Home as probably the best Spider-Man movie ever made, dethroning Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse, which really, really makes me happy. What other films have I seen this year? Oh yeah, I've also seen Black Widow. I think that was the first MCU film I've seen this year. And this was a movie that a lot of people were hyped up for because they've been asking for a Black Widow movie for so long. Now that we finally got it, it was alright. I don't hate the movie, don't get me wrong. I did enjoy the movie upon first viewing, but now that it's on Disney Plus and I got to watch it a second time with a proper analytical mind, I can see why some people have some complaints about it. Like, the film's not bad, it's just that it feels less like Marvel, if you know what I mean. There's another movie that feels that way as well, but I'll get to that in a moment. It's because Black Widow is a character who we all enjoy, but for some reason people didn't like the other characters with her, and the story they didn't think was good enough for her, and they also thought it was pointless since we now know when that she dies in Endgame. Spoilers for Endgame. I apologize. I'm so sorry. Don't judge me, Morgan. I'm not good at keeping secrets sometimes. Okay. But yeah, the reason why I think this movie didn't do so well is because it was meant to be released in 2020, just after Endgame came out, and because of the delay, it kind of ruined the movie for some people, which upset me. But it's still a good movie nonetheless. Like it was meant to come out before the Marvel shows did. Uh, Another film I saw, a Marvel film I saw was Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. That one I saw with my friend Connor from Crown Root. Well, he's not in Crown Root anymore. We're just friends now. But when we both saw that in the cinema, I was really blown away with how visually stunning it looked, and I think this movie definitely had the best fight choreography I've ever seen, topping Captain America: The Winter Soldier, in my opinion. Which is awesome because this is the first Marvel kung fu movie we've ever gotten, and with a whole almost Asian cast of characters as well. Like I don't know much about Shang-Chi in the comics. I do know about the Ten Rings though, the ones that the Mandarin has. Speaking of which, he does actually make a return. Like Ben Kingsley's the fake Mandarin from Iron Man 3. It was a really good movie. It's definitely better than others I've seen. If it wasn't for Spider-Man No Way Home, it probably would have been the best MCU movie I've seen this year, but it's not. It's second best. Another movie, this one isn't in the MCU per se, but it is a Marvel movie, and that is Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage. That sequel I was definitely looking forward to seeing because I really enjoyed watching the first Venom movie back in 2018. It was also delayed because of COVID, so we had to wait until this year to finally see it. And I'm glad. I personally think it was worth the wait. A lot of fans enjoyed it as well, but there are also some critics that say it didn't do so well because of the PG rating kind of makes it ruin. Like they said, it should have been R-rated, like Suicide Squad, for example. But I don't think the PG rating ruined it for me. Carnage in this movie is exactly how I wanted him to be, and the actor playing Cletus Cassidy and did the voice of Carnage did an amazing job. And Tom Hardy also shines as Eddie Brock in Venom in this movie as well. It is. I do think it's kind of funny that the movie starts off with near the halfway point, Venom and Eddie just argue, and Venom just leaves, acting like a married couple going through like an ugly divorce or something. It's so funny. As funny as it was, though, I do feel like it shouldn't have been there to begin with. But that's just a little complaint. Also, Tia Dalma is in this movie. Like what I mean by that is the actress who plays Tia Dalma in Pirates of the Caribbean was in Let There Be Venom, Let There Be Carnage as Cletus's love interest, Shriek, which I'm surprised was in the movie at all. And I didn't even know that she and Cletus were a couple, because from what I've heard, she and Michael Morbius were a couple, in the comics at least. Maybe in different comics, she and Cletus were together, but I don't know. Because I thought maybe with the upcoming Morbius movie coming up, maybe she would leave Cletus and be with Morbius instead. But, well, if you've seen the movie, you'll know that that's not the case. There was an end credit scene at the end of Venom, which I won't spoil, but when me and many fans saw that end credit scene, we were all blown away even more, and it made people even more excited for the movie that came after it. But then when Spider-Man No Way Home came out and we saw its end credit scene, it kind of ruins that prospect. At first I was annoyed by the end credit scene of Spider-Man No Way Home, but after properly analysing and talking about it with fans, I think it was actually a good decision on the filmmaker's part. Alright, what other movies are there? Oh yeah, there's also, I've recently seen Free Guy and Suicide Squad, the new Suicide Squad, not the 2016 one. Those films were alright as well, like, they were pretty good, enjoyable films. I'm not going to go into too much detail about it because I just thought they were okay. Like, they weren't bad, but they weren't like the best movies ever. They were just really good, which is good enough for me. All I can say is, if you haven't seen them yet, go watch it. Suicide Squad is definitely R-rated. It has a lot of blood and gore and funny moments. It even has nudity, which surprised the hell out of me, because I was not expecting it at all when I first saw it. And Free Guy, watching Free Guy, it kind of feels like I was watching Ready Player One again. Like Ready Player One mixed with The Sims, which is a weird combination now I think about it, but that's what it felt like to me if I'm watching, and I think it was really good. And so I definitely recommend those films as well. I have also recently seen The Matrix Resurrections, the long-awaited, a long-awaited sequel nobody thought was coming. Because after The Matrix 3 ended, back in early 2000s, I think it was, no one ever expected there to be another movie afterwards. I didn't think there was going to be another movie, but the Wachowski brothers or sisters, I don't know, someone said that they got a sex change or something, I don't know, it's weird. But they came back and made another Matrix film. And that was the last movie I've ever seen in the cinemas, and honestly, I thought it was alright. I mean, some people say it's just okay, like it's passable, but there are also just many fans that said that it wasn't really needed per se. But I think it was needed. Like, some people say that The Matrix 3 isn't really that good, and the way it ends kind of ruins the legacy of the first film. I think Resurrections did fix that problem. Like, it definitely gave us a proper satisfying ending, which I won't spoil, but it is a really good movie. My only complaint being that they didn't bring back the actor who played Morpheus, although Morpheus himself is in the movie, just not the same one we all knew in the early Matrix films. Okay, the last movie I want to talk about, I've been saving this one for last because, well, it's a film I never thought I'd ever see happening at all, a sequel to Space Jam. When I first saw the trailer for that, my mind was blown because growing up, one of my favorite childhood movies was Space Jam with Michael Jordan and the Looney Tunes. It really inspired me growing up because back then Michael Jordan was a hero to me, and the Looney Tunes were also a hero to me as well. So seeing both of them in one movie playing basketball against monsters, it was really awesome. Looking back on it now, the effects don't really hold up as much, but I still really enjoyed that movie. It is a childhood nostalgic dream of mine. In fact, when I first saw that movie, Space Jam, I always wanted to be a basketball player growing up. I wanted to be like Michael Jordan. But when I started trying basketball, I realized how difficult it was, and it was nothing like the movies. So I ended up playing video games for a living growing up. This Space Jam, A New Legacy, it doesn't have Michael Jordan in it. Instead, it has LeBron James. And the story definitely feels similar to the first one, but completely different. Like, LeBron James is forced to play a basketball game with the Looney Tunes against the bad guys. Although it's different this time. This time, the villain is this algorithm named Algae Rhythm. I know, it is pretty stupid, but kind of funny. Who is played by Don Cheadle, aka War Machine from the MCU. He kidnaps LeBron's son, and he says, "Oh, if you want your son back, you gotta play some basketball against me." And the movie is basically just LeBron and Bugs Bunny traveling the Warner Brothers universe, visiting many Warner Brothers owned films like Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, The Matrix, Mad Max Fury Road, and so on. Collecting all the Looney Tunes and gathering them together to play against Algae Rhythm and the Goon Squad, which is basically they basically did what the Monstars did. Like they took other basketball players and they fused them with animals and elements, turning them into these like monstrous creatures. Yes. And they were playing basketball together, but they weren't playing regular basketball this time. This time they were playing a video game like basketball that LeBron James's son invented, which I thought was a pretty good spin on the movie. And I thought it was really cool when they were gathering the audience for the basketball game, and it was just many characters from Warner Brothers, like Scooby-Doo gang, the Iron Giant, King Kong, the Gremlins, and the list goes on. It was really good. It was a really good movie. Definitely one of the best legacy films I've ever seen. I definitely think it's a good follow-up to the original Space Jam. My only complaint with that movie is that they didn't have Michael Jordan make a cameo in the movie. It would have been so good if they got Michael Jordan in it. There was actually a scene where they did get Michael Jordan, or they thought they did, but it turned out it wasn't Michael Jordan, it was just Michael B. Jordan, the actor who was in Black Panther, who played Killmonger. It was funny at first, but looking back on it, I do really wish they could have brought the real Michael Jordan in. I don't know why they didn't do it. Maybe they didn't have enough money to hire him for the cameo. Maybe Michael Jordan didn't want anything to do with the movie. I don't know. At first, one of my friends thought maybe he died, but no, Michael Jordan is still alive, and nobody knows his opinion on the movie. It would have been really, really good. Like, maybe at the end of the movie, they could have had Michael Jordan give LeBron James, like, a pep talk, tell him about, and maybe he reunites with Bugs Bunny, and the three of them just have a good time together. It would have been so cool. The inner child in me is really wanted this so badly, but we never got it in the end. Alright, now... Oh, wait, hang on. There is one more movie that I need to talk about. One that I forgot to add onto the list, so I better do it now before I forget. Ghostbusters Afterlife. Yet another movie of a sequel movie to a film's franchise I never thought we'd get a continuation of. Because Ghostbusters came out in, like, the early 90s, I think it did. I don't remember. It's been a long time since I've seen it. But when I saw Ghostbusters Afterlife in the cinema, I did have low expectations at first, because after seeing the disappointing, crappy 2016 remake of Ghostbusters with the all-female cast, I kind of lost hope for it. But Ghostbusters Afterlife definitely improved upon, and it definitely felt like a legacy movie done right. It was a really good movie. I won't go into too much detail into it, and like I said before, because I don't want to spoil it for anyone. But it is, if you are a Ghostbusters fan, you have to go watch this movie. It is really good. It'll definitely satisfy your nostalgia for the series. And the way it ended, they might make another movie. I'm hoping they do. It would be cool to see a new Ghostbusters movie. That's all I'm going to say about it for now, because as this video is already like 20 minutes long, so I better wrap things up and start talking about the video games I've been playing this year. And the TV shows, of course. In fact, I'm probably going to do this in a separate video, so we're done with movies for now, so now we're going to move on to TV shows and video games. And then, in the third part of this video, I'm going to be talking about the bad stuff that has been happening this year. So, thank you guys so much for watching, and stay tuned for part 2. Hey guys, and welcome to part 2 of this year review. I may or may not be able to put all the parts in one separate video, because, well, I always do the year reviews in one go. It's just, I don't want to rush through these like I do the other year reviews I do. I just want to be in more detail for certain things. Anyway, we've done part 1, which is where I've been talking about the movies and other good things like the Bleach anime returning. Now we're going to be moving on to TV shows and video games. Let's see. Well, in terms of TV shows, I've definitely seen a lot of them throughout the year, because, well, Marvel has been showing a lot of shows. But before I get into the Marvel shows, I'm going to start off with a show that actually came from Japan. It's a series called Squid Game. By now you've probably heard of it. It's like a live-action Japanese anime-like TV series. And the moment it came out on Netflix, it became really popular worldwide. And at first, I didn't understand why that was. But after watching it myself, I can understand immediately the hype and popularity behind it. So, what's Squid Game about? Well, without spoiling it, I'll try to go into as much detail in describing it as I can. It's a Japanese-style show that's focusing around this main guy. I've forgotten his name. It's Sugun. It's a Japanese name. I don't remember the names very well. Who is a guy who is in debt and he needs to pay back a loan he took out with these bad guys, but he has very little money. He's a poor guy. He also has a sick mother he takes care of, as well as a daughter who he rarely sees because, well, in his divorce with his ex-wife, she got custody over her, and she was planning on moving away to England, and he would never be able to see his child again. So he's desperate to get money to pay, not only to pay off his debt, but also try and get joint custody of his child, so he can see her more regularly. He then meets this random guy who offers him money if he beats him in a game. He gives him a card, and he and many other people end up in being captured by these pink hooded masked figures who take them to this island base, where they tell them that literally everybody captured is someone who's in debt to someone, and they're offering them a chance to give them money. But in order to win the money, they have to play 6 games. Each of them is a Japanese-style game. But the thing is, what they don't know is that if you lose the game, you die. So all the players there are pretty much fighting for their lives. And once they sign up, there's no backing out. So this is a series that's more on the about this one guy, the main character guy, and several other side characters, all fighting for survival to win all 6 games and win the money and become rich, basically. Which is really, really interesting. I really like shows like that, like where you start bonding with certain characters and you're like, oh, who's going to die next? Who's going to live? And when you see a character you like die, you're like, no, why did this person die? I like them. Or if you see a person who you hate, it's like, oh, why does he get to win? I hate this guy. Stuff like that. It's really good. It's a really good series. It also holds nothing back in terms of gore. Like, it is a very R-rated series. Like, when you see people die, they really die in probably some of the most gruesome ways ever. Like the first game they play where they do red light, green light, when they red light, they have to stay still. If they move for even an instant, they get shot on sight by auto turrets. It is insane. The series also had a lot of good twists in it as well, which I won't spoil, and I also won't spoil who lives and who dies in these series. Even if I wanted to, I can't because I don't remember the names of the characters. But it is a good show, and I definitely recommend it. If you're of age, of course. You have to be of age to watch this series, because it is not a show for children, I can tell you that much. Okay, next up we're going to be talking about the Marvel shows. There are, hang on, there's 5 in total, if I'm counting correctly. The first one that was released is called WandaVision. By now, I assume a lot of you have seen these shows by now. All of them have aired on Disney Plus as every week as soon as they came out. WandaVision was the first one that came out, and if I had to rank out, well, I'm gonna get to the ranking of the shows in a bit, but WandaVision was definitely a really good series. Like it's in the style of a sitcom like series, and they're basically like mimicking other old sitcoms. Like the first episode is all black and white, and it's kind of like the Robinsons or something like that. I don't know those sitcoms that well, because to be honest, I hate sitcoms. I always hated sitcoms growing up. They've always annoyed me for some reason. Like watching a show where people just say something and then there's this laugh track in the background and something funny. I'm like, I don't get it. What's the joke? And it just gets annoying really quickly. The only exception of sitcom shows that I did enjoy is probably The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I haven't seen all of it, but I have been watching it recently because I heard it's one of the best shows ever, and I just wanted to see young Will Smith in his prime. My cousin was the one who got me into it, and I didn't think I would like it because it is yet another sitcom, but strangely enough, I was enjoying it. So, I'm still watching it now. But we're not talking about that, we're talking about WandaVision. And as each episode goes on, the show starts evolving. Like they're showing each decade of sitcom shows. Like the first two episodes are in black and white, then they start adding color, then you start getting an 80s feel, then the next episode is a 90s feel, then near the end it's like an early 2000s kind of feel to it. And I really like it. And I also love the mystery behind the series. Like, the first two episodes, you have no idea what the hell is going on at all. Like, it makes it feel like you're watching a sitcom, but then there's some weird stuff in the background, and you start questioning things. Like for example, the first episode, one of the characters started choking, which was not part of the show, and his wife was just laughing. He's like, "Oh, stop it!" While he was just choking to death, and eerie music was playing, and you're like, "What the hell's going on?" And then the second episode, the ending showed this guy coming out of the sewers, and he was dressed like a beekeeper, and you're just like, what the hell? Who is this guy? And one was just like, nope, and she just rewinds it, and you're like, constantly questioning what is going on. But when you're nearing the end of the series and things start clearing up, you do understand what's going on, and yeah, the ending, it was good and all, and I know they're setting up something big, like Wanda is obviously, they're setting up Wanda for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which I'm definitely looking forward to next year. It'll probably be on my list with other good things to talk about, but yeah, WandaVision, definitely a good series, especially a one that's featured around sitcoms. Like, as far as sitcom-like shows go, this one was definitely one of the best I've seen. Next up is Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This one, I didn't like as much as WandaVision per se because, well, this one feels more like a Captain America movie where it's just James Bond action, which is not a bad thing. I do like the Captain America movies. I just prefer them less over actual Marvel movies. And hold on a second, let me open the blinds. It is dark in here. There we go, sorry about that, just letting more light in. But yeah, Falcon and the Winter Soldier to me felt like another Captain America movie, which is not bad. I just didn't enjoy it as much as WandaVision. It is still a good series, don't get me wrong. Like I really like how we're getting more character development and focus on the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Like it's constantly switching between the two characters. Like with Sam, we're seeing him trying to live up to the legacy of Captain America, even though he gave him the shield at the end of Avengers Endgame. He chose to give up the shield because he didn't think he was worthy of the role of Captain America. Something else I really like about the show is that it addresses certain topics like racism in this series. For example, there's this one scene where Sam, the Falcon, was going to this black neighborhood, and these cops approach him, and because they thought he was up to no good, and they were gonna arrest him because he's black. But then they find out he's the Falcon. He's like, "Oh, we're so sorry. We'll back off immediately," showing that they only show him respect because of his rank as an Avenger. And I like that. I like how it touches on topics like this because a lot of shows don't really have the guts to do this sort of thing. Because they live in America basically, and they're all like, oh, they'll never let a black man be Captain America because it just wouldn't work. But it did work, and because in the Marvel movies, Sam wasn't really that well developed. Compared to the major Avenger heroes, he was always the less likely. Hawkeye had the same problem as well, but I'll talk about him in a bit. But in this series, we got to see more of him, and he definitely shined in this series. As for the Winter Soldier, Bucky Barnes, we get to see him trying to adjust to having a normal life in the modern day New York, trying to cope with the things he did in his past, trying to move on in a way. Like he feels guilt over the many people he's killed as the Winter Soldier, and he's trying to get over his brainwashing. And there was this one cool scene where when he was in Wakanda, the Wakandans were trying to free him from the brainwashing. And there was a scene where they were doing the brainwashing words, but Bucky was able to resist them, and he was finally freed from their control, which really satisfied me seeing that he's no longer a slave to them. And there's also the scene where where he lives next door in this apartment building to this really nice Asian old man, but then it was revealed that he killed his son when he was the Winter Soldier, and so that's another thing to add to his guilty conscience. Then later on, they brought in a new guy to become the new Captain America, John Walker, and as well, and me and a lot of other people I know didn't like that they were just replacing Steve Rogers with just some guy, but John Walker's actually not a bad character. Like, in terms of skill, he is definitely fit for the role of Captain America. The problem is he just can't hold up the legacy that Steve had. Like, he's the best soldier in the military, and he's highly skilled, but he can never truly hold on to the title. And when he loses it, when one of these flag smashers killed his partner, he goes crazy and murders a guy with the shield, staining it in his blood. And the whole world saw that, and they went crazy. And he lost his title as Captain America, and he lost the shield as well. It's such a good series. Like, another thing I love about the series is that it shows what the world is like after half of humanity came back after Hulk snapped them back into existence. Because during the 5-year time skip when half of humanity was destroyed, a lot of poor people ended up getting their homes and their jobs. But then suddenly when they came back, they were like, oh no, we're giving them their homes and jobs back, so you can get out of here. And this started a revolution of people who trying to claiming that the world was better off with half of humanity destroyed, calling themselves the Flag Smashers. And I like it because this definitely feels like something that could happen if somehow half of humanity did die in real life. That's what I really love about the show, like the realism behind it. My favourite out of all the Marvel shows, however, is Loki. Loki is probably my favourite character in the MCU, one of my favourite villains. Well, not my all-time favourite villain, that is Thanos, obviously, in the MCU, but Loki is one of the best characters in all of the MCU. And it's just so cool that we got to have a whole series is dedicated to him, where in Endgame he escaped by taking the Tesseract and teleporting away. We see what happens to him after that. He ends up getting teleported to this desert area. Then he's immediately captured by these people who call themselves the TVA. I meant. Who is this organization that fixes time paradoxes, and they work for these 3 giant space lizards called the Timekeepers. And Loki is sentenced to being locked in a time loop for all eternity for all he did. But he's trying to figure out how to escape, and at the same time, he ends up working with one of the TVA members, Owen Wilson's character. I don't remember his name. It's been a while since I've seen it. And it turns out there's another version of Loki causing havoc in the TVA, and they were tasked with capturing her. I won't say what happens afterwards, but I will say this. The way this series ends, it pretty much sets up the entire Marvel multiverse. The MCU has now become the MCM, the Marvel Cinematic Multiverse, opening up a lot of possibilities for other Marvel movies and shows, which we'll be getting next year, which I'm so excited for. That's what made Loki the best Marvel series, in my opinion. Plus, I love Tom Hiddleston. He's one of my favourite actors ever. The next Marvel show after that is the first animated Marvel series in the MCU. It's called What If. Basically, this takes what Loki started at the end, like when it opened up the multiverse, and expanded on it. Like, we got to see more of the multiverse in the series. Like, each episode is dedicated to an alternate universe of what if storylines. Like, for example, what if Agent Carter was made Captain America? What if the Black Panther was Star-Lord? What if Ultron got the Infinity Stones? And the list goes on. That's basically what the series is all about, just what-if scenarios. And it also introduced the Watcher into the series, who we only briefly saw in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 with the Stan Lee cameo. So it was definitely cool to see Uatu in the series. Definitely looking forward to seeing more from that series in the future. The last Marvel series that was released recently is Hawkeye. And like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, this one expanded more on the character Hawkeye, who didn't get much of a time to shine in the past Avengers movies. So I'm definitely glad he got more attention in this one. Though this one is more of him. He's not the only main character in the series. The other main character is a girl who's going to be the next Hawkeye, Kate Bishop, played by Haley Steinfeld, one of my favorite actresses and singers ever. And like Loki and Spider-Man No Way Home, it definitely introduced some concepts I didn't think were possible in the series. And I'm not gonna spoil it, but it definitely confirmed one thing for me, which I'm really happy it did. Watching Hawkeye confirms that the Netflix Marvel series, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, Luke Cage and the Defenders, and The Punisher are all part of the MCU, meaning I have to watch those as well now. Great, more shows to watch, but I don't mind. I love Marvel shows. I love the MCU, and I love Marvel, so I don't mind watching more of it. And I'm definitely happy now knowing that all these shows are definitely connected to the MCU, because it's been bothering me so long not knowing if it's true or not. So, Hawkeye is a good series. Like, it's pretty much similar to Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That is more like an action series, but but I like the Christmas theme to it because it was coming out around Christmas time, so that definitely gave it a nice change of pace. And I think that's it for the MCU shows. Next up, we're going to be talking about video games. I played a lot of games this year, but if I had to choose one that I consider to be the best game of this year, it would probably have to be Resident Evil 8 Village. I enjoyed the hell out of that game when I played it on the channel. It was one of the best games ever. Like, Resident Evil 7 I really enjoyed, but Resident Evil 8 I enjoyed much more. I really love the setting to it, I love the characters, I love the story, and of course, Lady Dimitrescu. I mean, the moment that woman showed up in the trailers for this game, everyone went crazy over her, myself included. Every guy was just lusting over her, and every girl wanted to be her. It's so insane. Like, I pretty much, like every other YouTuber who played the game, made jokes and references about how deeply in love I was with Lady Dimitrescu and how I wanted to be with her, and all her tall, thick glory. It was just really fun to do on the channel, and it was also equally as fun and terrifying, the game. Like, I remember that one scene in Resident Evil 8. Oh, by the way, if you haven't checked out my Resident Evil Let's Play yet, please go check it out right now. I'll leave the link to Resident Evil 8 and the other games I'm going to be talking about this year in the description below. But yeah, there was one scene in Resident Evil 8 that really terrified me, and not a lot of scenes in the Resident Evil games I played have terrified me a lot compared to this, so that's definitely worth checking out over. The second best game I played this year is Spider-Man Miles Morales, because I really enjoyed the 2018 Spider-Man game when it came out, and I played on the channel. It was one of the best Spider-Man game experiences I've ever had. It easily taking in the top spot as the best Spider-Man game I've ever played, replacing Spider-Man 2. Miles Morales, I think, probably tops that one, because with its improved graphics and improved mechanics. Thanks. And the new abilities it introduced and the host was really good as well. Like, swinging and playing around as Miles was I definitely had more fun than when I was playing as Peter Parker. My only complaint about Miles Morales is that it was too short. Like, it wasn't a proper sequel per se. It was more like a small continuation, like an extended DLC. But I still had fun playing it nonetheless, and I'm definitely looking forward to playing the sequel next year, where you get to play as both Spider-Man and Miles, and it's finally going to introduce Venom into the game. And who knows, maybe Venom might be a playable character. That would be so cool if they made Venom a playable character. Like, the game's going to be focused on 3 people you constantly switch between. Peter Parker, Miles Morales, and Venom. We don't know who Venom is. I'm guessing it might be Harry Osborn because, well, there's no mention of Eddie Brock in the games. So who knows? Because the game ended on a cliffhanger where we saw Harry Osborn in this tank and the symbiote was in there with him, healing him. So I'm guessing Harry is going to be Venom in the next game. What other games have I played? Oh yeah, Little Nightmares 2. That game I also enjoyed very much, because I do like the Little Nightmares series. Little Nightmares 2 was definitely a good scary game, and the ending definitely surprised the hell out of me when I played it. So I'm definitely curious to see where it's going to go in the future, if we are going to get a Little Nightmares 3. Some people said that we might not get a Little Nightmares 3, but a guy can dream. Even though Little Nightmares 2 was actually technically a prequel to the first Little Nightmares, showing how Six got onto the Mer, and how she develops that hunger and all that, and how she became so twisted in the head. It would be interesting to see where the story goes from there, where we see what happens to Six after she left the Mer. It'd definitely be very interesting. And I think that's going to do it for TV shows and video games. Oh, wait, hang on. I just remembered Crash Bandicoot 4. I mean, that game I did enjoy playing because I love Crash Bandicoot, but out of the games I have played, it's probably my least favourite game I played this year on the channel. I do love Crash Bandicoot 4, and I do love its mechanics, and I do love how we got a proper continuation from Crash 3, but for some reason, a lot of people weren't that into Crash Bandicoot anymore after that. Like, some people weren't that interested in it, which really confused me because the game is a lot of fun. Like, I love the new mechanics they introduced, like the new masks and their abilities, the fact they get to play as other characters like Tana, Cortex, and Dingo Dial. I thought it was really cool. I don't know what's going to be next for Crash Bandicoot, but I have heard rumours that they might be remaking Crash Bandicoot The Wrath of Cortex and Crash Twinsanity in the future. I hope that rumour is true because I really want to play those games on the channel. I grew up playing those Crash games. Those games is what got me into Crash Bandicoot in the first place. So I'm definitely hoping we get those remakes in the future. And maybe after that, we might get a proper Crash and Spyro crossover game. I really want to see that, like a true crossover between Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon, made by the same developers, Toys for Bob. I would really love to see that. I'd like to see the two of them team up, take down their villains together, something like that. It'd be really cool to do. And that's it. That's going to do it for part 2 of this video. Next part will be the last one, and this is where I'm going to start talking about the bad things that have been happening in 2021. Luckily, there weren't many bad things in this year to talk about. Like, according to my list, there's only like 4 bad things. I might have missed some other things, I don't know. It's hard to keep track of everything that's been going on throughout the entire year. But I hope you guys enjoyed part 2, but stay tuned because part 3 will be coming soon. Peace. Hey guys, and welcome to part 3 of my 2021 year review. And you may notice I have a light on in my room now because it has gotten dark when I started recording this part. Which is kind of appropriate and ironic considering in this part I'm going to be talking about the bad and dark stuff that's been going on throughout this year. I'm not usually excited about talking about negative things, especially what's been going on this year, but as part of the year review I have to do it. Certain things I won't go into full detail over because, well, some things are kind of personal and I don't think my family would be very appreciative of me talking about things without their consent. So, let's talk about the lesser things first. In terms of movies and games and stuff that I consider to be bad, I've only got one movie to talk about that was bad in my opinion. That being Eternals, another MCU movie. Now, when I say it's bad, I don't say it's like the worst movie I've ever seen. Because when I went to see the Eternals in cinemas, I actually did enjoy it. Like, I did enjoy the action, and it was very nice to look at visually. But looking back on it and thinking about how the story plans out and everything, I can understand why it's hated so much. Like why critics and fans consider it to be the worst MCU movie ever made. So what's it about? Basically, it's about this group of aliens who come to Earth years ago, like during its creation, called the Eternals. They were created by these godlike beings called Celestials, who I do know about, to protect the Earth from these demonic dark creatures called Deviants. And they've been living on Earth throughout its creation during the dinosaur era to modern day now. And throughout the whole time, they have been living in the shadows, taking on human identities, and so forth. And they don't get involved in human in affairs, really, which is why they weren't there when Thanos snapped away half the universe. Because one guy even questioned this, who was dating one of the Eternals. He was like, well, where were you when Thanos snapped half the universe? And the Eternal said, we don't get involved in human affairs unless deviants are involved. And I swear to you, when I say this, I heard someone in the audience behind me shouting, that's bullshit! And causing everyone to look upon him. No, Morgan, that wasn't me. That actually was someone in the back. I prefer to stay quiet when I'm in the cinema, unless I see something really epic and I just can't help but scream out my happiness. Like that certain scene in Spider-Man No Way Home that I talked about in part 1. But, honestly, I can see why Eternals is not a good movie, but I don't think it's bad, per se. Like, I did enjoy it on first viewing, but looking back on it, I can understand why people consider it to be bad. Like, all the Eternals, apart from one, the Hollywood actor, or that one black guy, two then, they're all bland, really, in my opinion. Like, they're very bland characters. Angelina Jolie is playing one of the Eternals, and even she's bland. And Angelina Jolie is a great actress, so I'm guessing that the director wanted them to be bland, and emotionless characters because, well, they're interdimensional godlike beings. And there's this one Eternal who's basically Superman. Like, he flies around, he has super strength, he has laser eyes, and I don't know. It's a mix of meh. In my opinion, it's just a meh film to me. But if there's one thing I don't like about the Eternals, it's not the bland acting or the story or any of the other things I mentioned. To me, it's the fact that it has very little connection to the MCU as a whole. Like, I've stuck around to the end credit scene, both end credit scenes, and none of them connected anything to the MCU. Instead, they set up other things that I don't know about. Like, I mean, I will be spoiling some of it. So if you want to avoid some spoilers to the end credit scene of Eternals, then please skip ahead to this part in the video. Okay, they gone, Morgan? You think they're all gone? Okay, now I'm going to be talking spoilers, so you have been warned if you haven't skipped some ahead, like the video, like I said down there. The end credit scene for Eternals showed, like, the movie ended with basically some of the Eternals leaving Earth to do something else, while some of them chose to stay behind on Earth. One of the Eternals, the child Eternal, was made mortal and had her powers taken away so she could actually grow up and have a life, which she always wanted apparently. And the black guy Eternal, he ended up staying, and he had like a gay relationship with this one guy, and they adopted a kid together, and basically the end credit scene showed the Eternals that left Earth flying through space, and then suddenly they get boarded by this weird Greek-like man who claims to be the brother of Thanos. And I was like, what? Thanos has a brother? And he's also accompanied by this tiny little fawn, like this goat-legged guy. And I have no idea who these guys are. Like, I've never heard Thanos having a brother. Like, I know very little about Thanos' origins in the comics. That he is compared to his people on Titan, he is a mutant basically. Like, he is a deviant in some way, because all Titans, like his species, are human-like, but he is not human-like at all. And he somehow has a brother. Like, I really don't understand that. Like, how can Thanos have a brother, and why has he never mentioned him? I really don't get what they're setting up there. And the last end credit scene, throughout the whole Eternals movie, like the main female Eternal character, she's in this relationship with this regular guy who is a teacher at a university, and throughout the final end credit scene revealed that he is actually not a regular human after all, but in fact he's a descendant of the Black Knight, apparently. I really don't understand. And it shows him opening a chest that contains this ancient sword of darkness, and as he's about to pick it up, a voice called out to him saying, "I wouldn't do that if I were you." And we don't know who the voice is really. Like, I don't recognize it at all. And then the movie just ends. And when I left the theaters, I was scratching my head throughout the entire thing, trying to understand what the hell that was. Like, what did I just watch? How does this all connect to the MCU? Even Shang-Chi, which didn't feel like it had a connection to the MCU, had a connection. Like, the end credit scene showed him meeting Wong and the other Avengers, and they're trying to trace the origins of the rings. So that one definitely felt like it is connected to the MCU. Eternals didn't feel like it connected to it at all. And that's what I hate most about the Eternals. It just really didn't feel like a proper MCU movie. I did still have a blast watching it though, because in my opinion, what makes a movie really bad is if it bored me. And did the Eternals bore me? Not really. There were some boring moments in it, but it didn't make the movie entirely boring. Like, when I saw the action scenes, I did enjoy watching them. I wasn't just like, action, whatever, blah. So, the movie was just a meh movie to me. Not the worst, just meh. Okay, and that does it for bad movies. There aren't any bad games I've played, at least none that I can remember. And there aren't any bad TV shows I've seen either, so we're going to talk about some of the bad things that happened in life now. With the obvious one in being the fact that COVID is still a thing, even now, this year. I hate COVID, and that's pretty much obvious considering everyone hates it. I don't think there's a single person in the world who actually likes COVID. If such a person does exist, then they deserve to be hated as well. I honestly hoped that 2021 would mark the end of COVID, or at least bring us very close to the end. Because, well, this year we ended up getting vaccines for COVID. I've had 2 vaccines right now, and I'm going to be getting my 3rd sometime in January. I honestly really hoped that COVID would die out nearing the end of this year, but I was wrong. Instead, we ended up getting a new variant of COVID, and now things are starting to get worse again. When I first got that news from my mum, I was trying so hard to keep my rage inside, because I really wanted this to be over and done with. I wanted to be free again. I wanted to go out and spend some time with my friends, free of masks, and not have to constantly worry that anyone who coughs or sneezes anywhere near me, I instantly have to run a marathon away. I just don't want to live like that anymore. I want to be free. And a lot of you can relate to this because you all want the same thing as me. You want to be free of this COVID so you can finally do what you want. And the vaccines themselves, I mean, they're not really a cure per se. They just help boost your immune system so that if you do get COVID, you don't die from it instantly or something. I don't know. And I have no idea what this new variant of COVID is. I just hear that going to make things bad again, but not so bad that they're going to start closing down businesses like they did and put us in another lockdown. I really hope we don't have to go through another lockdown in the future. Like, I really don't think I can handle that again. I still have my YouTube channel, my writing to keep me occupied. So if that is the case, I won't be completely I won't completely lose faith in humanity. What else? Oh yeah. Also, another thing that has been going on that really concerned me is what's been going on in Greece lately. Like, for those of you who don't know, I am half Greek on my mum's side, so I have a bit of a strong connection to Greece, as I consider it to be like my second home away from home. And lately, during the summertime, Greece has been getting a lot of fires. Like, I've been seeing it on the news a lot, and it really drove me mad. Like, I was getting really worried. And when I heard how hot it was getting in Greece, like how the temperature was just going up and up constantly, I couldn't help but feel worried about all the people I know there. Like my uncle, for example, who lives in Greece. He's fine, by the way. He's completely fine, but I can't imagine how he dealt with all that heat. Luckily for him, he lived nowhere near where the fires were. So that's a good thing. Things have quieted down now, which I'm really thankful for. But honestly, when I first heard about this, I was beginning to panic because I thought this meant this would lead to like a rise in global warming or something like that. I know very little about global warming and all that, but I remember hearing people talk about how, oh, it's going to bring the end of the world. And I'm just like, hey, shut up. Though a part of me does think it might be true. Emphasis on might. I'm not saying I believe it. I'm just saying it could happen. And people are trying to take drastic measures to ensure that doesn't happen, so at least there's that. Yeah. Greece is like one of my favourite countries in the world. Like, it is, like I said, it is my home away from home. And I used to go to Greece every summer when I was a kid and just spend time with my family there and have a good time. I didn't get to go to Greece this year because of those fires and the heat, and honestly, I'm glad I didn't, because I don't think I would have lasted a day in that heat. I can't imagine what it would have been like. Just horrible. Even here in the UK, when it was summertime, it was getting hot, and I couldn't even handle that. What makes you think I can handle being in, like, sun temperature, or whatever it was? I wouldn't last a day. Okay, there's one more thing I want to talk about this year that is probably the worst thing that has ever happened to me and my family from this year. But I'm not going to go into complete detail about it because I am respecting my family's wishes to keep this private as much as I can. All I'm going to say is that this year, in fact, today, as I'm recording this video, I have received word from my mum and my sister that my granny has recently passed away. It was really, really sad for all of us. Just when I first heard the news this morning, upon making this video, I was in complete shock. Like I couldn't say any words. Like I couldn't get words out of my mouth. I couldn't process what I just heard. It really surprised me. It really upsets me deep down because, not because of how she's, well, you know, she's old and she's reached a certain age. She didn't die from old age at all. It was nothing like that. All I can say about my granny is that, without going too much into detail, is that she caught us all off guard by succumbing to cancer. And it was the very bad kind of cancer. And we were all completely shocked when we heard this news. Like, none of us saw it coming. None of us even predicted something like this could happen, because my granny was perfectly healthy. She is for her age, she was really fit and really healthy and really well organized. And to see her suddenly succumb to cancer and then dying from it, it really broke a lot of our hearts. And what's worse is that this year represents the last year I'm ever going not only going to see her, but the mill, which is the house she lives in. It's basically the home I was born and raised in, because I was born in Derby, which is where she lives, and just knowing that what sooner one day we're going to be selling, now we're going to be selling that house and getting rid of all her stuff. It really broke me, because it really upsets me knowing that someone else is going to be living in a house I was practically raised in. It really broke my mind. Because every Christmas, we always go down to that house, to the mill, and celebrate Christmas with the whole family, like all of us together. And my granny is always the one who makes the reservations and always organizes everything, like the foods and everything. She was really strong and well organized, and that's what we all admired about her. So you can understand why seeing her in a hospital bed, it really broke all of us. I remember when I was holding her hand, she could barely move or even speak. She couldn't even open her eyes, and everyone around me was just really devastated by this, myself included. It was really horrible. This event has shown me just how cruel life can be, where you could be with someone you care about really deeply, and all of a sudden they're snatched away from you, and you lose them forever. Up until a couple years ago, I had been taking life for granted, because it wasn't until 2 years ago that I started experiencing real loss of loved ones. I know people die every now and then, but when you finally see people you love suddenly die from whatever, and you never see them again, it really changes your outlook on life as a whole. Like, I talked about this before when I made that video talking about my uncle's passing, and how it really broke my family, really upset them. And then my grandpa passed away last week. No, not last week. Last year, I meant. This happened way before COVID started. But he was old and he went out peacefully, so it wasn't something too bad. But now that my granny's gone to cancer, it really shows me just how precious life is. Nowadays, I live in fear of seeing other people I know and care about suddenly get taken away from me. It really goes to show that you should really appreciate the people in your life while you still can. So, if any of you watching this video have any grandparents who you might think, they won't die yet, they have many years ahead of them, don't assume that. You never know when cancer will suddenly strike and when you least expect it. So my advice to any of you who still have grandparents now: spend as much time with them as you can. Be there for them and just hang out, talk about your life, the good times you've had. Just do anything to spend some time with them. Don't let your last memory of them be what me and my family went through with my granny. Family is one of the most important things you should treasure in life. So remember this, because I certainly will. So, the next time I see any of my remaining family, I'm spending as much time with them as possible. Because, like I said, life is short, and you never know when you could suddenly lose it. And that, I think, is going to conclude the bad things that have happened throughout 2021 and my year review as a whole. I apologise for leaving it on a depressing note. It's just things have been hard for me, but bad things that have happened to me throughout 2021 hasn't changed my outlook on the world. Like, I still hold hope for it, and I am hoping to improve myself in the future. Like, next year I have a lot of new things planned. Like, I'm hoping to get my driver's license next year, as well as start joining a gym and start losing weight and becoming more fit. And who knows, maybe at some point down the line I'll finally get myself a girlfriend. A guy can dream. But I am definitely not giving up. And I'm definitely not giving up on my dream of making Chaos Man a reality as well. In the last video I did where the video titled I Need Help with Chaos Man's Future, I wasn't really in the best mental state when making that video, and I apologise for that, because it pretty much felt like I was begging you guys to help me make it happen, because I myself don't have the strength to make it happen myself yet. But I am going to try harder. I am going to try and make it happen. Even if it's just going to be a webcomic to read online, that's good enough for me. It's a good starting point. Because who knows, maybe when the whole series is online, someone will take notice of it and ask, hey, I'd like to help you make this an anime, or an actual physical comic series. That's what I'm hoping for, at least. What I know for certain is that I'm not going to be achieving my dream just by sitting around and complaining and hoping for a miracle. I have to actually make it happen myself. But I am happy to know that I've got my family and friends to back me up all the way, including my friend Connor, and even though he said he's not with Crown Root anymore, he is still willing to help me with Chaos Man, which I'm really thankful for. He's been a really good friend and sort of mentor to me about comics and stuff. Chaos Man probably wouldn't have gotten the way it was without his help. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what becomes of me in next year. And I definitely know for certain that things will be starting to pick up again for the channel. Like, a lot of new games are going to be coming out, so I'm definitely looking forward to playing those. The next Spider-Man, the God of War sequel that I've been looking forward to for so long. Though, if it's only PS5 exclusive, I might have to get myself a PS5 just to play that game. And I will. I am definitely playing God of War Ragnarok on the channel. Even if I have to get myself a PlayStation 5 to do it, it'll be worth it, because I want to play that game and continue the story without letting other YouTubers spoil it for me. That's how determined I am to play that game. I'm also thinking of playing some old games on the channel as well. Like, I'll have to get them first. But, like I said, who knows what the future will bring. For now, though, I'm going to end this video off right here and enjoy the rest of 2021 in doing what I want to do. By spending time with my family and just relaxing, finally. So, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you all had a great 2021 this year. Let me know what happened to you throughout 2021 in the comments below. I'm very curious to see what you guys have been doing throughout the whole year, whether it's good or bad, or a mix of both. And if you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel for more videos. It was just like this one. And again, if you're new here, please be sure to check out the many Let's Plays I have done over the years, including the ones I played this year, which I will link in the description below. And I will see you all next time. Peace. And I'll see you all in 2022.